I'm a 26-year-old female. I've been living in my current apartment for 7 years now and still do. But my next-door neighbor has been living in this apartment building since the 80s, so he's at least half my age, 53 to be exact. Also, I need to mention that my neighbor has been diagnosed with schizophrenia. I know this because I live in an area where a lot of people also know this guy. He used to be an artist and a teacher at a university. But ever since he got diagnosed, he has been struggling with finding a new job, maintaining his social and private life. I don't have any stigmas around mental disorders. In fact, I often feel quite empathetic towards people who suffer from schizophrenia or other mental illness. But he's overall quite an aggressive and short-tempered person. He is also very huge. I would say at least 2 meters tall, and weight probably over 100 kilograms. So, therefore, there's a reason all of the other neighbors, including me, people who used to know him and befriend him, are now afraid of him, tries not to agitate him, although sometimes it's a challenge. Since I've been living in my apartment, there have been multiple, I don't even remember all, occasions where my next-door neighbor has tried to strike up some kind of conversations with me. Mostly when he's in his manic state and soon to be hospitalized. Sometimes I don't see him for weeks, even months. But sometimes he is ringing my house multiple times a day, always asking for some kind of favors or just wanting to talk to me about random topics. The first time this happened was 6.5 years ago, about half a year after I started living in my apartment. The first time I talked to him was after me and my university friend at that time were both walking to my apartment after a night out. We were both quite tipsy, and as we approached the doors of my apartment building, we both had a little bit of struggle unlocking the code to get inside, because the lock system is quite old and glitchy. Suddenly, we both heard a man's voice saying something to us from behind. He said, "Hello, girls. What are you doing?" Trying to sound friendly, although we both got startled by him approaching and getting super close to us. We both looked at each other and then at him, and I replied, "Hello. We are trying to get inside the building, but the code and lock is glitching." He looked at me for about 10 seconds, looking me up and down while smirking. Mind you, I was 19 at the time, and it made me feel quite uncomfortable. Then he asked, "Do you live here? Is your apartment number 13? I got really uncomfortable after him asking me this question, but I really didn't know how to react, so I said, "Yes." Then he smiled and asked, "Isn't your name Stacy?" Which is my name. I looked at my friend and saw that she too felt really creeped out by these questions. We both stayed silent for a while, and then he said, "Okay, girls, I'll help you open the door." He helped us. We got inside the hallway, but it felt so unsettling because he literally saw us go into my apartment while unlocking his doors and going inside. Some time went by, I would say maybe 2 months, and nothing happened. Then one weekday morning I woke up at around 6 a.m. in my apartment because my doorbell was ringing. I also lived there alone at the time. Since I don't have a peephole on my doors, I felt quite paranoid and scared to let anyone know I was home unless I was expecting someone to come over. I always pretended I'm not home. I don't do this anymore though. The ringing stopped after a while. Since I felt quite scared and confused, why would someone ring my doorbell this early in the morning, I decided to wake up and get ready for the day. I only had to leave my house at 11 a.m., so I had few morning hours for myself and to study. At around 9 a.m., my doorbell rang again. I pretended I'm not home, but now I had a feeling that the person who was ringing my doorbell is somebody from my apartment building, because otherwise, why would somebody wait 3 hours to ring my doorbell again? I felt super creeped out and tried to be as quiet as possible. At 11 a.m., I had to leave my house, so I tried to exit my apartment as quietly as possible. As I started to lock my apartment doors, I heard my neighbor's doors unlock and him stepping out in the hallway and saying, "Hello there. I've been trying to reach you the whole morning. Why didn't you answer? I knew you were at home." I started to panic. but didn't want him to notice it. I replied, "Hello, I was sleeping. I probably didn't hear the doorbell ringing." He didn't seem to believe my answer, but continued. "I've been trying to reach you all morning because we have a lot of things to discuss. We don't have much time, but because of me handling everything, all is under control for now. You need to look what I've left under your entrace rug." He was mumbling a bunch of nonsense, and I realized the guy ain't right in his mind, maybe having a manic episode or something, because he was talking about obscure things that he needs to take care of, but I really didn't understand anything. He asked me once more to look under my entrance door rug, so I looked. Underneath it was a trowel/spatula that was broken in half. I was so confused, but he kept on going about how I needed to help him and hide it somewhere, because he has done something with it that he can't further elaborate to me. At this point, I was so scared I just ran out of the apartment building without replying to him nor looking back. I heard him running after me for a while, but then he stopped. In the evening, I was super scared to come home, but I didn't really have a choice, so home I went. Not even few hours went by when my doorbell was ringing again. This time I answered, "Who's there?" without opening my doors. My neighbor answered, "Hi. I just wanted to apologize about what I said earlier today. I just have so many things to tell you." He went on mumbling about complete nonsense. He said that he is currently playing a real-life simulation game called Quest, that I play a part in this game, and that there is something hidden in the garden house outside our apartment. He won't tell me what it is, and that I need to come outside with him and check it out myself. I obviously refused and instantly called my dad, because he lives just a few blocks away from me, and I asked him to please come over and help me talk some sense in my neighbor and ask him to leave me alone. The worst thing is that my dad came over and had a talk with my neighbor, and thought that this guy is completely sane, and said I was overreacting. Maybe the guy tried to be nice and polite to my dad, I don't know, but it left me feeling unsettled. The next day, I was informed that my neighbor demolished our hallway and some of the mailboxes attached to the wall by the entrance. He also smashed a window and a light bulb in the hallway. From what I gathered, he was being aggressive towards his girlfriend and few other neighbors from our building. Police and ambulance was called, and he allegedly got hospitalized. I also learned that after this incident, he broke up with his long-term girlfriend. That just really made him spiral downwards. For a few years, I barely even saw the neighbor, and if I saw him, we just said hello to each other, and that's about it. But he started bothering me again 2 years ago. I'm not really scared of him anymore, maybe because my boyfriend moved in with me, maybe because I grew up a little and didn't feel as helpless and paranoid, maybe because he barely talked to me for 3 to 4 years. But still, if there are situations where I talk to him, I try not to agitate him. Besides, I feel like I'm the only person he doesn't try to intimidate or be aggressive towards. Don't know why, though. It all started happening again in the November of 2023, when he started ringing our doorbell many times a day. When I first answered him, I dared to open the door because my boyfriend was beside me. He said, "Hello. I came up to you because I wanted to let you know I'm working on a new project and therefore I might listen to some music. I like to turn it up quite a bit, but I hope that you won't mind." I could see the guy was swerving and barely kept his eyes open. He also stank of alcohol and was holding a burnt-out blunt in his fingers, although there's no smoking policy in our apartments or hallways. I replied, "Well, I understand. I also like to listen to music loudly, but please don't blast music late at night when everyone's asleep." He smirked and then said, "I know. I've heard you listening to music many times." I got a bit confused about how he knows that, because I don't listen to music that loudly, but okay. So from that time on, he started blasting music 24/7, and there was no way of making him turn it down. If anything, I felt like he fed from the agitation of other neighbors and us pleading him to turn the volume down. I regretted that I ever said it was okay, because there were several times me and my boyfriend woke up at around 3 a.m. because the music was so loud our walls were shaking. We tried calling police, which was useless, turning off electricity, banging on his doors and asking him to stop. We realized the best option is to just ignore it and use earplugs or something, because he just really wanted to pick up a fight with my boyfriend. Every time my boyfriend would go to him and ask to turn the music down, he would get super aggressive and yell at him, saying, "You're not my neighbor. Stacy is my neighbor, and if she's bothered, she should come up to me personally and address her concerns." Which I did, but nothing ever changed. This went on till at least end of January 2024. At the same time, there were several times when I was smoking in the garden of our apartment building. Many times he would notice me through his window and then come outside to talk to me, asking me personal questions, complimenting me on my looks and talking about his projects. He also hoarded lots of random stuff in our garden because he wanted to make a little garden house workstation for himself and a bomb shelter in our basement. But he never did anything with those materials. He once asked me if I liked if he made me a bench so I could sit while smoking. I said no. One evening I was outside smoking and I noticed him taking out several garbage bags outside the basement. It looked like he was cleaning the basement out. It just gave me weird vibes. Then he came up to me and asked for lighters. I gave him, didn't take them back, and went inside. For a while I noticed through the window that we was throwing away random bags in the trash. The next day I didn't have uni or work, so I stayed home alone. In the afternoon my doorbell rang. I answered the door. It was my neighbor. He said, "Hi. Can you please come to my apartment because there's a friend of mine inside and something is wrong with his leg?" I looked at him in disbelief and said, "What friend? What's his name?" I asked this to see his reaction and to try to understand whether he was lying or genuinely needed help. He hesitated, then said the name of his friend. I replied, "How long has he been in your apartment and what exactly had happened to his leg? What kind of injury does your friend have?" He seemed to not know the answer right away, but then he replied, "I don't know. He's been at my house for several days and I can't explain what kind of injury it is." I said, "There's no way I'm entering his apartment," to which he replied, "I'm afraid you don't have a choice. You have to come and help me out." I just shut the door as quickly as possible and locked them. There was no way I'm going inside his apartment. God knows what were his plans for me, and I'm not risking it. A few days later, he rang my doorbell again, asking me to come outside on the street because there's a dead guy, a homeless person who most probably died from cold, and help him. I went outside, and the ambulance was already there. The dead person was already covered up, and there was nothing I could have done. Then he started to ramble about how all of this is connected to some kind of robbery, that some guy robbed him, and now there's a dead body on the street, and everything's connected. I didn't really understand what he meant by that. Was it his friend? Or some other person? Was it the guy who robbed him? Is my neighbor involved in this, or is he just out of his mind? I really didn't want to know, and it seemed that nobody was suspicious of him. I genuinely didn't and still don't know what to believe, because I feel like this guy would truly be capable of murdering someone, in my opinion. He recently made spiked brass knuckles that he used against a policeman. He would often visit near dive bars with a knife in his pocket, threatening to stab people. I mean, there are countless situations I've had to endure with this neighbor. If you want more stories with him, please support me.